What is up, guys? TheDevildogGamer here, and we are playing some War Thunder. Today we're talking about something that I get asked on stream all the time. Devil Dog, did you hear that the Marine Corps is getting rid of their tanks? Well, such a shame. Can't believe the Marine Corps got rid of their tanks. And you know, I kind of wanted to touch on it on a place that stays forever, so I don't have to keep repeating it and things like that. But, you know, talk about the situation with it, but in short answer, yes, the Marines should have gotten rid of their tanks. There's no reason for the Marine Corps to have Abrams whatsoever. And I'll explain why. And with my experiences with tanks, being in the Marines in a combat zone, and what the future kind of holds, and kind of a retrospect of why we don't need tanks anymore. Now, my time in Iraq, I only got to work with an Abrams one time. And the only thing it did for us, other than look menacing in the street and not do anything, was run over weapons that we found in houses to crush them and get rid of them. Because a tank is absolutely useless in a mount operation, in an insurgency, and especially when you're trying to limit collateral damage. The rounds it fires does nothing, because all it does is go through one house and out another. It's just there to look menacing at that point. They are useless for insurgencies. They were useless after the invasion, and there were no need for them whatsoever. Now, when it comes to the Marine Corps of the future, there's no need for the Abrams, because guess what? Our focus is back on island hopping, amphibious operations, and the battle with China. But people are going to be like, but Devil, we need Abrams to fight the Chinese tanks. And I'm going to tell you what, no we don't, because there's no plans to ever invade Chinese mainland. That'll never happen. What we're worried about is the massive islands that they have popping up, and these floating fortresses that the Chinese are making out there in the South China Sea and beyond. That is where the main focus is. And I'll tell you right now, an Abrams, just based off the math, is pretty useless on a little tiny island. Woody Island, which is one of the largest the Chinese are securing, is only 1.8 kilometers long and 1.1 kilometers wide. And you're like, oh, that's decently big. No, it's not. Because the max effective range of an Abrams main gun is 3,000 meters. So the island is a fraction of the size of the tank's max effective range. Think taking a 50 cal to a range and shooting it at 50 yards. That's the problem you would get with an Abrams. Not only that, we'll break down kind of a simplistic terms of a MU and things like that. So an LHD in a MU configuration can carry 5 Abrams, 25 AAVs, 8 M198 howitzers, and 68 trucks, along with 1,600 troops. 5 Abrams for one ship. Now the LHD can carry 3 LCACs, which are the hovercrafts, and each LCAC can carry 1 Abrams. Guess how much of a waste of space that is? Yeah, that's quite a waste of space. Very much so. For a little tiny island. So you're taking 3 LCACs carrying an Abrams each. Only 5 Abrams are on the ship, and you're putting them on an island when you could be taking all that space and making more troops, more, tactical vehicles, more supplies, more everything else like that. But you're just putting an Abrams on a beach. It's a lot of work to put something that's basically put on a tiny little island. That's not going to have much of a difference whatsoever. The LHD itself can carry 12 CH-46s, 4 CH-53s, 6 Harriers, 3 Hueys, 4 Cobras. In the future, it's going to carry up to 22, which probably now in its configuration can carry 22 Ospreys and F-35s. Now, the issue itself is the LCACs and the Abrams. They're old, they're big targets. You can only carry X amounts, and putting it on such a tiny island, is it really worth carrying all that extra equipment with you to do that? No, it's not. And I'll give you kind of the short and sweet answer of why it's not. Now, say you got an Abrams, right? All that space and stuff you brought to bring it, you could have brought an extra couple hundred Marines with, I don't know, javelins and other things, SMAWs and things like that have great range to them. The overall goal of the Marine Corps right now is to make a squad of Marines as deadly as 3 Abrams tanks. Trying to make them hunter-killer teams that can carry an insane amount of firepower but be able to be lightly transported. There was just a test recently where Marines were using inflatable, powered boats with javelins to become small, very hard to see, anti-ship teams with javelins. Training like that. That's the kind of different, small scale combat that you're going to see the Marine Corps kind of getting into with these island hopping campaigns. It doesn't matter if you're going to get, look at World War II, all the Shermans that were thrown on the beaches that did absolutely diddly squat. It was a lot of work for a lot of not payout. And that's where they're going with the Abrams. The lack of Abrams now creates the ability to work on anti-ship and ground-to-ground missiles. They just recently did a test with a JLTV carrying the stealthy naval strike missiles, and it carried a bunch of them. So to be able to put a small JLTV onto a beach carrying stealthy anti-ship missiles to defend the island against a naval force is, you could drop 4 of those for every 1 Abrams you're going to be able to get to the beach. And that's important because China's fleet, as of 2019, consisted of 335 combat ships. By 2030, it's going to have 450 and 110 subs. And that's not even including its coastal attack fleet or its coastal defense fleet or its Coast Guard. China will, by 2030, have the largest navy in the entire world, unfortunately. And they're working on their 3rd aircraft carrier. It brings into important that an Abrams is going to be absolutely worthless against any sort of shipping that comes on, especially on a tiny little island. It's got nowhere to go. And the thing is, what about if they put tanks on the island? Well, believe it or not, we're actually working with the Fire and Forget Spike anti-tank missile, which is an insanely high, long-range missile and can be carried by troops. So that tank, killing ability with the javelin and a spike is still there. And then you throw JLTVs on an island with a bunch of stealthy anti-ship missiles, and you can defend against fleets. Not to mention, you're throwing a bunch more Marines onto the island, too. There are new IFVs being worked on to replace the AAV, the LAV-25. The last I heard, the up armor kits are coming off the LAV-25 so they can swim again. And this is the focus, and that's where it should be. The conflict of the future is not going to be in the Middle East. It will be in the South Pacific, unfortunately. That is where it's going to be. It's not going to be an invasion by China on U.S. soil. It's not going to be an invasion of China by, U.S. forces. It might be Taiwan because they're really kind of pushing. They're looking like they're doing a lot of staging there. There's a huge helo base being built right across the strait, right there at Taiwan. They're working on amphibious assault ships. We're actually starting to focus more on amphibious assault ships with a new one getting ready to come out here soon. There is a massive push not only by Chinese but the Marine Corps on amphibious. And that can either mean the Chinese are ready to be able to react and defend their claimed with bunny ears, claimed islands out in the South China Sea, or they're looking more towards Taiwan. And that's where the Marine Corps is looking into the future, not to be, reactionary, but being, you know what I mean. They're just looking to kind of be in the position to where if they have to react to such a situation, it's not like all of a sudden, oh shit, we weren't prepared for this. It was more like, okay, we were prepared for this, but this is not going to be easy, and that's where the Marine Corps is looking. The day and age of the tank is over, unfortunately. If you saw anything by the Azerbaijani war, tanks were getting taken out by drones left and freaking right. There is no point to tanks anymore. APS couldn't save tanks, unfortunately, and will never save tanks. And in an insurgency, they're useless. In a conventional war, they are now useless. And it's either going to come down to drones or the boots on the ground. And that's basically it. Because air wars will be over in days. And the only thing you're going to have left is whatever drone you can pull out of your pocket and whatever troops you can put on the ground. And that's the way warfare is going to be. No matter how much tech you throw at something, it's all going to equal each other and destroy each other at some point in time. So the tanks are a very useless and no longer needed thing for the Marine Corps. The Army, of course, still has to do them. Because, Russia still has an assload of tanks, and you can't just get rid of tanks because you need an equalizer. I mean, it's just that if Russia suddenly got rid of their tanks and stuff like that, I would definitely think the army would go that route too, and maybe push it more into a mechanized infantry without the heavy tanks into it. Maybe faster IFVs that carry longer range, fire and forget anti-tank missiles would be kind of cool. Stuff like that. Because honestly, the tanks they're done for. It's over. The day and age of tanks is over. They were useless in Iraq past the invasion, and they're continuing to be useless. And the last conflict just showed what can happen if you put a tank out in a field and you give these little $1,000 drones out there wrecking their freaking stuff left and right. There's no defense for it because guess what? SHORADs can't take down little tiny drones like that. That became very clear with Syria also, where Israel's throwing drones at, top tier Russian SHORAD units with self-protection modes, and they're getting destroyed. It's going to come down to drones, but unfortunately, when it comes to China kind of seems they're very lacking in the drone market, and they're throwing a lot into the ground-to-ground missile situation with their hypersonic stuff, which will never work because you can't really do stuff like that, especially with the anti-ship hypersonics, things like that, and their naval forces, which is gonna be an amphibious and a naval showdown when it comes to China. So that's why the Abrams is done for in the Marine Corps, and I'm actually happy about that because it opens up a lot more money in the dwindling budget of the Marine Corps, and it opens up a lot more, space on ships that can be filled with not only troops, but a lot more different equipment, stuff for weapons teams, things that can turn, a squad into 10 times what it should be when it comes to firepower. Because, one Abrams is something, but when you could split, a squad or even a platoon, and suddenly they become even more deadly than they were before, the Abrams can't really do that. And that's what the future is going to hold for the Marine Corps. So let me know what you think. Questions, comments, concerns. If you think anything is going to be different, if you think it's needed, or you somehow say, no, I like tanks because they're the greatest thing ever, I'd like to hear it. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Peace.